of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Good job. First item of business is the employee of the quarter. This is usually a lot more fun because we actually have people in attendance beyond just my daughter and son-in-law. And I get to talk about how cool it is that the employees of the city vote for another co-employee as the employee of the quarter, and how important that is to the city that we recognize them. This quarter, we're recognizing Tricia Kramer. Tricia, and she's here with us tonight. So I want to thank you for all of your great efforts over these last several months. It's a real testament to your relationships in the city that the other city employees would vote you as employee of the quarter. It doesn't tell me in my cheat sheet what your gift is, so I hope your gift card is something you really will enjoy. And I know that I've already signed a certificate to commend you for the award. So thank you very much. If you would like to speak, I'm happy to have our host. I don't have the ability because I'm not the host, but the host will unmute you if you'd like to say anything, Fish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Shove. Actually, she did unmute me. I appreciate that. I'd like to thank you and council for the public recognition. And I just want to say thank you to my fellow staff members for the show of support. It means a lot to me. And I know that any one of them is just as worthy of being named Employee of the Quarter. So I truly appreciate it and I thank them. And it's always my pleasure to work with them, and it's my pleasure to work for the city.
We have a lot of high performing people in our city. So you're in a good group. And I know that you do a great job for all the things that where my office touches your office through the events. You do a fantastic job. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are any other comments from council. If there are, I'd be happy to recognize you. Yes, Councilman Brandon Watson.
I would just like to second what the mayor said. It just, I'm amazed at the professionalism of everybody down in the city offices. You call at any time of day and you get a positive response. Do what they say they're going to do, and they do it punctually. And it makes working with everybody at the city a real pleasure. And Tricia, you're just a really big part of that, and we thank you.
Thank you. That was very nice of you.
You're welcome.
We're having claps for you, so congratulations and thank you for taking the time to attend the meeting to receive your award. We appreciate it. All right, next item of business is Child Support Awareness Month proclamation. It is in your packet. I'm not going to go through and read it since we really don't have any participants here to listen to it. It is important that the city recognize, and I think all of us recognize the importance of parents of children taking responsibility for their kids. So that's what the Child Support Awareness Month is all about, and hopefully you'll keep that in mind as we go forward. Next item is approval of the consent agenda. Items 4A through D. We don't have the vice mayor here to take something off. Is there someone else who would like to take anything off of the consent agenda? If not, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilman Clare, seconded by Councilman Brainerd Watson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't see any in my screen, so the motion is adopted unanimously to adopt the consent agenda. It takes us to the first item of business, which is canvassing the vote. Ms. City Clerk, do you have a report for us?
No, other than what's in the actual candidate packet, these are the final numbers. I'm sorry, let me get there real quick. The resolution presented is asking for approval for, I can't get my computer to work now. The top winners were Ann Donahue, John Romack, and Ron Clare. They all did meet the majority of qualifying votes. In that case, the top 3 highest votes win the seats.
And is there any questions or discussion by anyone on the council? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt resolution 2478 to adopt the official election results from the Litchfield Park primary election held on August 4th, 2020?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is adopted. Congratulations more officially than what we presented in the last meeting. Congratulations to the 2 candidates who are here, Ms. Councilman Clare and Councilman Romack, and also congratulations to Councilman Donahue for winning her seat. We look forward to working with the 2 of you over the next 2 years.
Congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations is in order. Any other comments from the council? All right, going on to the next item of business, item 5B is COVID-19 Business Assistance Program. If you recall, the state has given us about $750,000 that we are able to use to infill our budget or backfill our budget for reductions in receipts because of COVID-19. And we're also able to use it for some other things, one of which is an assistance program for our businesses. So we asked staff to take a look at what they would recommend the council should do with these funds. And tonight we're going to have a report from our Director of Finance, Paige Peterson, on what staff thinks. So the floor is yours, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. You summarized it very nicely, Mayor, so I'll just jump right into my presentation here. Share my screen. Okay. So just to quickly recap, like the mayor said, we did receive just under $739,000 in the AZ CARES Act relief funds. So that freed up some general fund money for us. We do have some COVID-19 expenses, the PPE costs associated with that, but FEMA is likely going to reimburse that. It may only be 75%, but we'll still get a significant reimbursement. There's still some uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 and what the potential revenue impacts could be, especially when the flu season hits. Nobody knows yet exactly how flu and COVID together are going to react. And last month, Matthew presented to you the business impact study. So I just wanted to briefly recap that because I think it's an important part of this discussion. I think the business survey did show that there are some businesses in need of some financial assistance. The first question, how are business operations being impacted? More than half responded that they were greatly impacted. Then you can see that the level of impact, more than half selected high, and 47% of the businesses that responded, 47% lost 75% of business revenue. So that's a pretty significant impact to some of our local businesses. Some businesses did apply and receive stimulus funds, 54%, but there are 45% that responded that said they did not apply. Just 1% said they requested and did not receive any. The biggest needs during COVID-19, other than returning to business as usual. Most responded a return to business as usual was top priority, but the second was financial assistance, and that was 21% of the respondents. So I think it's safe to say that the business survey determined that there is a financial need for some of our local businesses. So what I did is I researched some of the other existing business relief programs that are in Arizona. Phoenix, Mesa, Maricopa County, they've all established programs already. So I took some of the things from their programs already just to give you an idea of what other places are doing. It was pretty consistent. The grant amount was up to $10,000. There was one, Mesa, the grant amount would be determined after application. They did all require a commercial and physical address in the city limits. They required the business had not received other CARES funding. The business had suffered negative financial impacts or business interruptions, and excluded businesses, were publicly held companies, franchisees that weren't licensed in Arizona, real estate investment firms, lending businesses, and multi-level marketing businesses. Some had put in a restriction that they had to have been open prior to January 1st of 2019, and that gross revenues declined by 25% or more. So after looking at the business survey results, what some of the other entities are doing, and then the needs of the city as well, and what's good for everybody, what I would recommend is we wait and see how revenues perform until November, and just see how they are. If they meet or exceed, then possibly consider allocating nearly half of the freed up money, so $360,000, which that would allow 36 businesses to apply if we did allow up to $10,000 per business. So if we retained the nearly $379,000, that would allow for our local sales tax to take a decrease of 5.7%. That would be a pretty significant decrease. Like I said, we just don't know yet what the COVID impacts will do to our revenues, but I would feel comfortable recommending nearly half of the freed up money for a business assistance program. So continued with the summary and recommendation, what I would recommend, and it's definitely up to the council, these are just my early recommendations, and I think we have some time to get this just right to make sure it meets the needs of the local businesses here. But that we would also award a maximum grant of $10,000, enough funds to award 36 grants. I think it would also be prudent to make sure they had a physical presence in the city limits and an active business license. I think it would also be reasonable to require that their gross sales drop 25% or more, that they hadn't received other CARES funding, and then include that in eligible list of businesses that I had mentioned earlier. So in order to have a successful grant implementation, it'd be really important for us to establish a timeline so we make sure the program is advertised properly, businesses know about it, gives us plenty of time to review the grant applications, the council to review them, and then to award. So I would recommend that from now until December, we can work on this program and fine tune it, get it exactly right for Litchfield Park. And then in December, make our final decisions and guidelines. Then in January, we could open up the grant program and start advertising through social media and any other advertising outlets, the Chamber of Commerce. And the end of January, require the grant applications are due. And then the entire month of February, an application review process. And then in March, award the grants and disperse the funds. So that does give us a lot of time. The only downside that I could see to waiting so long is if there are local businesses in need, this is quite a wait for them. But on the other hand, I think it's probably wise for us to wait and see how our fall revenues perform. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for all of the efforts you've put into this, Paige. We appreciate it. Are there any comments from council? I have most people I can see. No, Councilman Brainerd Watson.
I'm just a little concerned that there's some businesses who may not be here by February. I think most of our restaurants are probably doing okay, but some of our other smaller businesses, I'm thinking like nail salons, hair salons, things that have really struggled with reopening, might not be here in February. I'm just wondering, is there any way of maybe doing a partial disbursement or breaking it into two different things? Or, I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say. Split it up so that we can do part now and part in the spring when we see how the rest of our tax ramifications fall out. Just a thought.
Are there any other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor.
I don't see other. Am I missing somebody? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Clare. Didn't have a wide enough screen to get everybody on it.
No
Now I do.
worries.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Lisa. I think if we wait on this time, first, actually, Paige, thank you. Good data helps us make a decision. But looking at the data, 78% of our businesses are saying they've had at least a 50% decrease in revenue. And you could go up to 94% have said the 25% that's the threshold that we're asking for the grant. If we wait until March to disperse, that's a year of time that they've struggled with Corona. I think sooner rather than later to at least begin the process and maybe stagger some type of payments to get them going. We have been able to maintain tax revenue so far through the year. I'm definitely all for being cautious, but if we wait until March, these businesses that are struggling are not going to be around.
Mr. Mayor.
In one moment, well, go ahead, Mr. City Manager, go ahead before I make my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add one thing for council's awareness as you discuss this. We've had the PPP program where funding has been distributed to businesses for paychecks if they continue to keep employees employed. And also the governor just released a new grant opportunity for up to 2 months, I think a total of $25,000 to pay for rent and or mortgage payments for certain businesses that have been impacted, i.e. they've been closed and they haven't had the opportunity to open up, say, such like our restaurants and our grocery stores, et cetera. So I just wanted you to be aware of that additional funding that's out there in addition to what we've just proposed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments. The first, I wanted to comment to Paige that your analysis was very well done, and I think overall you have prepared this in a manner that's very consistent with the way that the council historically has approached these things, in that it's very conservative and makes sure that the city is protected and our financial position is protected. And I think everyone on the council is appreciative of that. Having said that, I think that the points that have been raised by Councilman Clare and Councilman Brainerd Watson are important. I believe it would be helpful if we could break this down into a couple of tranches. So we took the first 180,000 and we initially did, we set up a program and did the advertising for that would cover the whole program, but we make it clear that we're gonna take the hardest hit businesses and allocate up to 180,000 at $10,000 a piece for between now and the 1st of January. And that after the 1st of January, we're going to take a look at the situation we have in terms of fiscally in the city, and we may allocate another 180,000 at that point and look at the next group of people who've applied. So we break it into a couple of tranches, because there are some businesses that have been very much impacted by this. And unfortunately, there have been some that have not had the sophistication to apply for the PPP program, or who may not understand how to apply for the governor's program. So it would be good if we could offer some relief to those businesses that may be seriously impacted and in jeopardy of surviving. The one thing that I would say that you need to add to your list of qualifications is we want to make sure that we're not throwing money into a black hole. So if we have a business that applies for something that is literally ready to go into bankruptcy and they're not going to survive, then we probably don't want to give them $10,000 to stay around for another month. We want to try to make sure that we give the money to businesses that are able to survive going forward and provide services to our residents and provide employment opportunities. That's probably a very difficult thing for you to put into policy, but that's what I would like to see you do. And then see if we can't get in a situation where we can give you approval for something in the next several weeks to get started on it. And I think, I don't know that we need, I'll ask Susan, our city attorney, I don't believe we need to have any kind of a motion. I think she's probably, that the staff has gotten direction from the comments that have been made at this point. Do you agree with that?
Unless someone on the council disagrees, then I think that you can just assume that Paige and the rest of the staff have direction.
All right, and then you can, Mr. City Manager, you can go ahead and once you get to the point where you have a program put together, that's consistent with what Paige has already presented with the modifications that we've talked about tonight, get that out to everybody on the council and then schedule a special meeting so we can discuss it and approve it.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we put the packet of information to go out to the local businesses, would it make sense to add the other available, such as the governor's program that the city manager just mentioned, list other resources that are available beyond this, so that we're sending information, like you said, to less sophisticated people to maybe give them a leg up or an opportunity to do something. So just to have just an additional line or two with the other resources that they could possibly utilize to help them get through this tough time.
And we actually have done that, Councilman Clare. We've already sent out a number of informational blasts to our businesses, trying to urge them to use the programs that are available. And it's unfortunate and quite frankly a little disappointing to see some of the numbers come back and say that 50% have not even applied for things like the PPP. That's a really simple program to apply for. I mean, it literally is insane not to apply for it. And to see that they have not is disappointing at best. But we can do that again. Sometimes it's difficult to get people to understand that when you apply for assistance like this, it's not like you have failed. So we'll put this out again. So if you could put that together, staff, I'd appreciate it. And then we'll try to move forward in a couple of steps, still maintaining as much as possible our financial security.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Brainerd Watson.
when we queried the businesses, asked them the questions, did anybody give feedback as to why they did not apply for those PPE grants?
We'll ask Matthew, because Matthew's the one who put out the survey and got the results back in. Matthew, did you hear anything back from people about why?
No, sir, nothing whatsoever. They didn't tell us why they applied or why they didn't choose to. As the mayor said, some of them just chose not to for whatever reason. But they did have a comment section, but no, ma'am, none of us gave information as to why they chose not to apply. I will say, as the mayor said, we've emailed out information to a lot of the businesses on the various programs. However, when all this lines up, as Councilmember Clare said, we could certainly line this up in addition to the new program. And maybe too, we send a mailer out to the businesses in addition to emails. Couldn't hurt.
If you do that, Matthew, one of the things you might do is just a brief telephone survey with the local banks to see which banks are actually accepting customers for PPP loans. Is that if there was one reason why a business might not request a PPP loan is because they don't have a bank that's properly supporting it. And there were some issues. I think, I think those issues have pretty well cleared up. And there are a lot of banks that are here locally that are doing that actively for their customers and actually doing it for new customers. But that would be something to make sure you check with and make, if there are, because there may be businesses whose banks just doesn't participate and won't participate.
Yes, sir, we could certainly do that.
All right. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to the next item of business, which is public safety options. Public safety options is a code word to talk about crime and police in our community. It was a request by Councilman Brainerd Watson that we have this on the agenda tonight, and I agreed to put it on the agenda. Although I want to say to the council ahead of time that this is not a topic that's really ripe for the agenda of a normal council meeting, because normal council meetings, these are our business meetings where we're trying to get specific things accomplished, and where things that come to us have been developed enough that we have full staff reports and there's an opportunity for us to take some action. This is a topic that is something that we're working on and that will need to be threshed out probably in one or more work study meetings. But I thought because of the timeliness of the assault that happened on Saturday, that it was important for us to talk about the topic and to get people's feelings about it so that staff has some guidance as we go forward and we try to figure out what are effective strategies for the city to take, in light of the society that we live in today. One of the things that I thought about was really two things. When I go to a lot of the Block Watch meetings, so when we get our Block Watches together, and one of the things that I talk about and that are talked about generally is the amount of crime in the city in these meetings. One of the things that has been very impressive to me over the years, over too many years to even remember now, is that when we get our weekly reports from MCSO and it tells us what is the criminal activity day by day over a 7-day period, it was typical several years ago that we would see 1 or 2 days that had some criminal activity in it, and we would see the balance of the 7 days, so 4 or 5 days, 6 days, that had no criminal activity at all within the confines of our city. And that always impressed me. And over the years, that has changed to where today, when we get our reports and we look at it, we look at 7 days, we'll see 4 or 5 days that have criminal activity and only 2 or 3 days that have no criminal activity. So something has changed in our community in that crimes are happening. And so what we think about as residents, particularly all of us on the council for the most part, I think that of the council members, the shortest resident history is probably Councilman Clare, and that's still multiple years. What we think about is the fact, well, Litchfield Park's changed. I mean, it's just so much more dangerous to live in Litchfield Park. It's just, and you kind of get upset about it. And I think back about the second story that I tell people when I go to Block Watches. And that is that I moved here in July of 1980. So 40 years ago. Within 1 month of the time of moving into the city, I parked my car underneath my carport, and in the middle of the night, that car was stolen. That is back in August or July of 1980. So 40 years ago, I had a car stolen out of my carport in Litchfield Park, right by the school. So you think back and say, well, has it really changed? And the answer is yes, it's changed, but it's not, the sky is not falling. We have always had some level of crime in our city. Our city is different today than it was 40 years ago because we don't know, literally, you don't know 25% of the people who live in our city today because it's now 6,000 people instead of 2,500. So everything is a little bit different, but the sky is not falling, and we should not take the attitude with our residents that, you know, the things are it's just gone to hell in Litchfield Park, because it isn't. We have very little crime in Litchfield Park, even today. Doesn't mean that we don't want to take action to make it better or to try to stem it from getting any worse. And we need to think about the things that are out there to do that. But I would urge everyone on the council not to adopt the attitude that this is a dire situation, because we live in one of the safest places to live in the entire world. And I also want to tell council the staff has been working on this issue for quite some time. One of the things that came out of meetings over the last 6 months was a question of whether or not we have adequate number of police officers. So we took the time, staff took the time to go out and do a survey to try to figure out how do we compare to jurisdictions around us in terms of the number of individual police officers on the street watching dogs like Councilman Brenner watching has. How many police officers do we have on the street per resident? So we looked at our number of police officers versus 6,000 or so residents, and we tried to look at that across other jurisdictions that were similar to us. That is a very difficult number to get because people categorize their officers differently. So is it patrol officers, or is it patrol plus detectives, or patrol plus SWAT? We pay for a patrol beat, but with our patrol beat, we get coverage by SWAT officers, we get coverage by detectives. So it's a very difficult number to compare. But the preliminary numbers that I have seen, we are not out of line with the number of officers generally that people have per resident. So it's not like we are in a situation where all of a sudden our officers, we just don't have enough officers. There have been meetings with the captain from MCSO, and the question has been asked directly: do we need to add more officers to try to make some of this stuff go away? And the answer has been no. It's not the number of officers, and the discussion is one in which looks at, if you and we can all think about this just logically. If we added another officer, you got to cover 3.5 square miles. So now instead of 3.5 square miles, you got 1 3/4 miles or something, 1 7/8 miles. You still have a huge area where things are going to happen. Those officers are not, it's not like you're going to have an officer in front of everybody's door to make sure that no one does something bad in their driveway. So it's not the number of officers by itself. It is, we need to find strategies that will allow us to be much more effective at maintaining the safety in our neighborhoods. And those things, we have started conversations with the MCSO on. Staff is working on them. And tonight it would be helpful to have input from the council about the things that you think would be helpful, which might direct staff to look at something that they're not looking at now. And then in the next month or so, we'll have a work study, which is the perfect place to sit and brainstorm. And staff will be prepared so they can participate in the brainstorming and bring us ideas. And we may actually have MCSO come into the meeting also to give us their ideas on what we can do. So with that, I'll open it up to responses, and I'll start with Councilman Brainerd Watson, who asked for this agenda item.
Well, first of all, thank you for letting it get put on the agenda. I appreciate that. And I wholeheartedly agree with you that just simply increasing the number of officers is not going to do what we want to happen. And I don't know that there's any way of totally preventing all crime. The reason why I felt really compelled to have this conversation tonight is I just feel like we're at kind of a crossroads, looking at the bigger picture as a country, of needing to make some choices and decisions moving forward. How do we continue to have this wonderful place that we live in? And I don't think it's necessarily investing in more manpower, but in some ways it's communicating a message that we stand behind our officers, and we are a law and order city, and we will prosecute. And I don't know how you do that in a positive way. I think our blue lights on the city hall is a great step. But I just think we need to make sure that people know that if there's crime and we find out about it, we're going to pursue it. We're going to deal with it. We're going to prosecute and make sure things happen. And then I think we need to look at signage. You know, is there some signage we can put up that basically reminds people that we use neighborhood block watch? Do we encourage more block watch? I love the program with the Sheriff's Department, the posse that we're trying to get up and running again. So I think there's just a lot of options. And that's why I really wanted to throw this out so we could ask for staff to come back with some ideas for us. You know, several years ago, Paradise Valley put in some cameras that monitored, you know, traffic in and out, and they were fought against by many people as an invasion of privacy, and saying that they were trying to keep tabs on who's in your neighborhood. And there may be some truth to that, and there may be some valid rationale to that. Just being able to capture this license plate came in and this one left at certain times might be of value. But there's obviously going to be some costs and things involved in doing that. So, you know, just being able to see what it is that other small communities are doing, what we can do effectively at a reasonable cost, and being proactive as much as we can is what I wanted us to do.
Any other comments from council? Councilman Romack.
I don't know whether you all have seen this letter from, is it Lorna Williamson? She wrote us a relatively lengthy letter on Tuesday. And it talks about how frustrated she and some of her friends are regarding some of the issues here in the community, one of which is speeding. She's appreciative of the speed bumps on Bird Lane. And as we all are, but wants to know how we can slow down some of the traffic in other streets. And I did not respond to this letter. I'm sure the city manager has seen it, or I hope so anyway. But it was rather scathing letter regarding noise, regarding just a lot of things, not a lot, but a few things in the city that she would like to see addressed. And I hope that y'all have at least taken the moment to read the letter and at least have some sort of comment on it.
Councilman Clare.
Okay, and John, I tried to reach Ms. Williamson and was unable to respond. She didn't answer and the phone didn't have a voicemail because she did have a scathing letter and it was addressing a lot of the issues that we're talking about. You know, I think the biggest thing that we've got to do is what makes this community special is the people that are in it. And I think we need to re-engage the community into looking after each other and not rely on the one or two officers that we have available to be the means of last resort. I mean, and they should be the means of last resort. We should be out there looking after each other. Maybe we use some technology of some cameras. We have just a few interests in egress points, and maybe we use some cameras just to catch cars coming in and out so we can see cars. And there's a lot of different options that we could use with technology that would be much less than having to pay for additional manpower. So I think a work study is absolutely needed to try and take a look at this and get the community back to where they feel they're being looked after by themselves and by us.
Okay, I'm sure that staff appreciates all of your comments. In terms of the letter has been responded to by staff on multiple occasions, including staff members visiting at the residents and actually looking in their backyard, and they talked about Litchfield Road traffic and how she can see it through a little hole in her bushes, and it's a problem. I mean, it's not like she's invented the vaccine we're all waiting for. We know traffic on Litchfield Road is too fast, and that there are times when there are races on Litchfield Road, and we have taken a variety of steps to try to deal with that. I mean, including we actually had our MCSO captain take a Saturday night and go out and stake out people in and around the Albertsons shopping center to try to see if he could catch some of this illegal racing going on. So it's not like people are not reacting to these issues, they are, but they're very, very difficult to police and to catch. And that's, that is, it's, we can spend all night talking about the changes in our societal fabric that allow this stuff to go on and be okay, but we have to deal with reality. And so we are looking at different things such as traffic equipment that would capture license plates and maybe some other information. And that is of great value to the police, because if we can tell who's coming and going from the community, then a good example is the mugging car. We would be able to see where that car came in. And one of the problems we have with that car is there have been reports on social media that think they have seen the car. And we have tried, and MCSO has gone out and tried to find the car in the area where the car was reported. We have pictures of the car, but then MCSO takes the picture of the car to the victim, and the victim says, "Oh no, that's not the car." Now the car matches exactly the description of what was going through social media, but it's not the car. It had another car, had different, had different whatever. So it's just not that simple. So it would be helpful if we'd had some cameras that would actually be able to look at the cars that came in and out of the park around that time frame, because then we'd actually have a picture of the particular car that the victim could identify, and it might very well help us go find that person. We have the resources if we just had the information to be able to follow up on. So we've also looked at block watch issues, and there's various things that have been discussed with the captain. And staff will get that together into an organized presentation, and then we'll bring it to the council and have a work study and talk about things that we might do, what are the costs of the things we might do, or the things that the community will support in terms of, for some it might be impinging on their personal freedoms. We've heard various things over the years as we've talked about some of this stuff. So we'll put it all together into a presentation that we can sit down and listen to, and then talk about the various options we might have, and maybe have other ideas for things that we could try. So yes, Councilman Brainerd Watson.
One other thing that I heard that some communities are doing and using is people's ring cameras, neighborhood ring cameras, and kind of creating a link of people who have the ring cameras and knowing who's got a camera focused in which direction. That might be something staff might see if they have any information on as well.
Mr.
We
Mayor,
might be able to put an inventory of something like that together. Mr. City Manager.
just to give council an update, Captain Broughton from MCSO is doing exactly that. He is contacting individuals in certain areas that have video cameras, ringtone, et cetera, to include businesses, and in their pursuit during an open investigation that they have, and they're trying to identify. They have some other records that they've also stumbled onto or been given information about. So they've got some leads and they're following up on that in particular, but just to add that to the conversation as well.
Okay, any other comments or questions from council? If not, then we'll leave this to staff to put together, and we'll have a work study that we'll put together in the next 4 to 6 weeks. All right, we're going to go on then to item number D, which is budget adjustments. And I believe that before we actually get into adjusting our budget, Paige is going to give us an idea of where we're at on our budget, so we know what we're adjusting. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Paige.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I've got a quick budget update for you. August is kind of a unique time for finance because we're working in 2 fiscal years. So we're working on closing out last fiscal year and starting the new fiscal year. So I don't have a complete finance report just yet because we're still working on closing out last fiscal year. I will have that for you next month. But what I can present to you tonight is our local sales tax performed very well. We were 10% over last year, or about $353,000. So COVID really had zero impact on our sales tax revenue. Our projection before COVID was $6,890,000, and we ended up collecting $6,878,000. So just about $12,000 under initial projections. So a really good year considering everything that happened in the shutdown. On the expense side, our expenses by department as a whole, if you looked at the city as a whole, we're only at 90%. So most of the departments fell under budget. We just had a couple that exceeded their budget. And so the request tonight is to see if you will approve, and it's not moving any money or additional expenses. It's authorizing the expenditure capacity, moving that capacity over to these two departments, the city manager's office of $18,500 and then special events of $500.
Okay, are there questions from council about the budget adjustments? All right, then is there a motion to adjust the budget as presented by staff in your packets?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second from Councilman Romack. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the budget is adjusted. One direction to you, Paige, when you come back to us next month with your finance report, if you could take a look at our budget going forward. In that budget, we made certain assumptions for business levels at the resort and the golfing activities, with growth throughout the period starting in November through April. Would you see if you could recast that budget based upon today's experiences that we're seeing right now? So our current retail sales as they're occurring in other parts of the city, and the wigwam and golfing business as it's currently being, as we're currently seeing it, so that we see the increase if we have increase in the other retail businesses, but we don't see the increase in projected business at the resort or the golfing over and above what they're doing today.
Sure, I can do that, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll go on to the next item of business, which is COVID-19 Business Service Area Expansion Program. This is it's a long way of saying an idea that I had asked staff to take a look at. One of the things that we want to do is encourage or set a stage or an atmosphere for our restaurants to be able to be successful. And with the changes that we've asked the restaurants to incorporate, with less people being indoors eating, that reduces the number of tabletops they can serve, reduces the number of customers they can serve. So it effectively impacts the business of restaurants quite significantly. So the thought was that maybe we can help out, because I don't believe COVID's going to go away when the cooler weather comes in November. I think it's probably going to, if anything, get worse. And so we've got a period from November until sometime when the vaccine, if it comes, is able to be effective, that's going to further impact these businesses. And so the thought was, why don't we change our rules, our zoning rules and our business licensing rules, and allow these people to come out and use the outside more. So it's real simple to understand when you look at the businesses that are on Old Litchfield Road. So along that stretch in Old Litchfield Road, I would like to see us be in a position to be able to close down Old Litchfield Road going southbound and allow all of the businesses along the road to expand out into the road and use that area to have more outside dining and allow them to decrease and minimize their inside dining, but still end up with the ability to serve more customers. Same way that we have, it's a little more difficult to picture it, but we have some ability with businesses like Ground Control or Times Square, if we can negotiate with the landlords to allow those businesses, again, to come outside of their business more and set up more outside areas for eating and drinking so that they can serve more customers and hopefully preserve more businesses. So in staff looking at it, we kind of had a chicken or an egg situation. There are various things that has to happen both from the city standpoint and from the zoning, not zoning, but from the liquor control board standpoint to allow that to happen. Normally the business would come to us and say, will you let us do this? And then they would bring in the paperwork and we could work with them. But they don't know that we're willing to allow them to do that. And we can't go to them as staff and say, well, we think the council will let you do this if you want to do it, but we can't tell you for sure because we haven't taken it to council. So the decision was made, we're going to bring it to council. Staff's going to explain it to you in more detail than I have. But we need to see if council will be supportive of the concept of allowing these businesses to expand beyond their current footprint into areas that would be more of a public space and be able to serve alcohol and serve their food and literally just expand their outdoor activities. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Matthew, who has been working on this.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the background on that. It certainly did a great job. Basically, we would be looking to put a program together where we would have an application. So we would send an email or a letter out to our 90 city businesses and let them know, obviously, if council approves this program, that this is something we're looking at doing. That application will be sent out to all the businesses. They could fill it out. Part of that application would, of course, be to expand their outdoor area, but would also include the requirements that would go through the building department. They'd have to go through that. Obviously, they'd have to make sure they were good for fire code, safety code, etc. Anytime you have alcohol, that's involved. And they would fill out that application. Once the application was received by staff, that business would come to city council for approval. It would be business by business because it has to be as far as their alcohol licenses go. One thing I think that would be interesting with that would be how many businesses in a certain area justify closure. I agree, as the mayor said, I think the most applicable area for this would be on Old Litchfield Road because other places, such as in the Friday Shopping Center, are more corporate, obviously. But in the downtown area, does one justify it? Does two? Does three? That's something you want to think about. Also, as me and the city manager discussed, and he had said this, you'd want to look at what hours do you want to close? Do you want to close down Old Litchfield for a week, a month, or Friday through Monday? Those are all things that you could consider. There's variables there we could do. But I think this could be a great program. Again, if council would approve this program, we would develop an application to send out to the businesses and see if it's something they would like to do. A lot of our restaurants have been really hurt, as you may see in the document. Executive Order 2020-47 limited businesses to 50% of fire capacity. And in addition to that, their groups have to be 6 feet apart. So a lot of our restaurants are hurting. You may have seen some of the numbers. Restaurants that are doing good are pizza places because they do carry out. Pizza business is actually up by a long shot for obvious reasons. However, indoor dining is down a lot. For example, I happen to know that, of course, Cracker Barrel is not in Litchfield Park, but their indoor business is down 75%. So they're hurting. So that's something to be considered. I think this could be very good for downtown businesses if this is something you would like to do. And again, it could be a sidewalk, it could be a street. There's so many variables here just according to where the business is located. But again, I think it's a great idea. Thank you for the mayor for proposing this. I would certainly try to answer questions if there are any at this time.
Questions to the council? Councilman Romack.
Thank you. Matthew, good job. I just want to be sure that you've talked to the restaurant owners along Old Litchfield Road. Have they had any input into this suggestion?
No, sir, I haven't talked to them yet. I wanted to make sure that this is something council wanted to do before we went down that road. If council approves this, we would certainly reach out to them as well as all the other restaurants.
I think
This is the chicken or the egg problem where
Yeah.
we want to find out if council will support the concept. And then if council will support the concept, then staff's going to go work with the businesses to see if there's any traction. If there's no traction, it'll never come back to council. But the idea is that if it comes back because a business is interested in trying to use it, that we already know we have council support for it.
I, for one, if I may finish, I'd like to say that I would be strongly in favor of it, whatever it's going to take to help those businesses downtown. It's not just that it's Peter, but all of the businesses down there, they need our support.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful that it can maybe help other businesses in, in the other areas around, that are in Litchfield Park, but the other areas also. I'm not sure how exactly it works for
Right.
them, but it may also actually we may be able to figure out a way that it can work. But yes, we need to do whatever we can. Councilman Clare.
So in this, it specifically lists, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, specifically lists restaurants and bars. Are we going to open it up to other businesses as well, such as gyms, or where outdoor space would make a big difference for them?
It's fine with me to do that if there's a possibility that where we can do this exactly the same thing for them, would be fine. I mean, the idea is to try to benefit all of the businesses that are able to improve this problem of indoor space occupancy levels being limiting. If we can help them by moving their business outdoors a little bit for the next several months, that's what we want to do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments from Councilman Brainerd Watson?
I support the idea. I think it's a great idea. Anything we can do to help them. And I agree with Ron. I think that, I think of the poor little karate studio that's got to be just really needing more space. So I think it's good.
Okay, so I think staff can take direction without a motion. Is that, you understand what council's saying? And if we can extend it to to businesses other than restaurants or bars strictly, then we need to look to see what possibilities are and try to do that. All right?
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Okay, so we'll go on to item F, which is Pagebrook Holding LLP Property Exchange. Woody Scouten. You're on mute, Woody. You're still on mute. Now you're off.
Okay. So this item is the first step in a process that would allow us to transfer property or exchange property with the owner of the Plaza Shopping Center at the northwest corner of Wigwam and Old Litchfield Road. And the reason we want to do this, and the owner is in favor of doing this as well, is to straighten out the property line locations on all four sides of the shopping center. So I don't know how these property lines got to how they are today, but they don't really match the improvements that are out there. So for example, on the west side along Desert Avenue, at the north end, the sidewalk is half on private property and half on city property. But by the time you get down to Wigwam Boulevard, the sidewalk's completely in city property, but the sidewalk along the south side of the property along Wigwam Boulevard is all on private property. And then on the east side, along Old Litchfield Road, where there's a lot of the outdoor dining areas, the property line is more or less down the middle of the open part of the sidewalk. So you've got, and that sidewalk's only about 4 feet wide at that point. So you've got 2 feet of public sidewalk and then 2 feet of private sidewalk. So it's just kind of a strange situation. And I think it's a good idea to straighten this out so that there's a clear understanding of the sidewalks are public, they're on public property, who's responsible for maintaining them, and so on and so forth. So, so we initiated this process with the owner of Pagebrook Holdings, Brian Enterbring, and I spoke with him as late as today to ensure that he is still in favor of moving ahead with this process, and he certainly is. So this is the first step that approves a notice of intent to exchange property. We will then advertise this and come back to the council, assuming there are no comments. We'll advertise it and bring it back to the council for introduction of an ordinance to, first of all, find that there is more or less equal value in the parcels being exchanged, and provide instructions for how to accomplish the exchange. I'm happy to get into the details of it if you like, but I think I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions.
In your packet is a drawing that shows very clearly what the adjustments are gonna be, and shows, how the lines move, in and out to get this thing lined up. Do you have any questions for the engineer, Woody Scouten, or are you ready for a motion? Seeing no questions, is there a motion to approve the notice of intent to exchange properties on and adjacent to Honeysuckle Street in the downtown with Pagebrook Holdings LLP?
Move.
So moved by Councilman Romack and seconded by Councilman Clare. Is there any further discussion from the council? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. So move on with the notice of intent.
Thank you.
Traffic signal intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County. Item number G. Engineer Scouten, do you have a report for us or
Yes,
recommendation?
very briefly, Mayor, just a reminder that we have a significant portion of that intersection, Camelback and Litchfield Road, within our city limits on the north side and the south side. In fact,
Significant. We have all of it.
well, we don't have quite all of it. There's a swath of McDOT County right away that runs through the middle of the intersection, but
Well, thank God, it saves us a lot of money.
all right. Interestingly, 3 of the 4 traffic signal poles are actually located within the city of Litchfield Park. So several years ago, McDOT came to us and said, we think you should help pay for the operation and maintenance of this traffic signal. And we agreed to that in 2013, entered into an IGA with the county. In my staff report, I've shown you how much they've billed us over the last several years. And it's pretty close to what their estimate is, other than for a couple of major renovations that they did to the signal. So that IGA expired in 2018. Nobody caught it. And McDOT recently came to us and said, we'd like to extend this. Are you interested? And we said, sure, let's go ahead and extend it. So we're recommending that council approve a 5-year extension with this IGA.
Any questions or comments from council? If not, yeah, this is a very good business transaction for the city. It's one that we're going to need to revisit in the future as we end up having to take over more of Camelback Road. We're probably going to end up with probably all of the maintenance on this particular traffic signal as a city expense. So this is a good IGA for us now, and hopefully we can get through the whole 5 years with only this amount of expense on that intersection. So is there a motion to approve the First Amendment to the IGA between Maricopa County and the city for operating the traffic signal at Camelback and Litchfield Road?
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Brander Watson, seconded by Councilman Clare. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next item of business is the Turtle Park sidewalk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an item to approve construction of a sidewalk along the north side of Turtle Park, which would be basically the south side of Wigwam Boulevard. I was asked several months ago to put together a design and construction cost estimate for building this sidewalk. There's an exhibit in the packet that shows the approximate location of it. It would be offset from the south curb line of Wigwam Boulevard by about 10 feet. And it would jog a little bit here and there to go around some other trees. So it would be a very nice addition to the park, I think, as well as providing good connectivity between the city and the rest of the world there at Indian School Park, because there's currently no sidewalk that allows you to get from Villanueva Drive along Wigwam to Indian School Road. So we put together a set of plans. I went to Ace Asphalt, who's on the Mojave Cooperative Purchasing System, and had them give me a proposal. It's in your packet. The proposal is for $55,839.45, and we would use HERF money for this project.
That was the magic phrase.
Yeah.
So we're not, it's not a financially irresponsible thing to do if we can use HERF money. So are there any questions from council? This is a project that has been discussed in the city for many, many years. We've had a lot of residents who have asked for this sidewalk. So it's something that the residents definitely want to see. And it is financially responsible so long as we can use HERF. So is there any comments from council?
I just want to, sorry.
Councilman Watson.
I just want to second your comment there on the, yeah, people have been asking for this and it's needed. You know, when you turn in and there's someone on a bicycle or worse yet, pushing a stroller on Wigwam Boulevard, and it's just too dangerous. So it's nice to see that we're going to be able to do this, and using HERF monies is always a added boon. So good job. Thank you, Woody.
Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the cooperative purchase contract with Ace Asphalt to construct the sidewalk along the north side of Turtle Park?
So move.
Is there a second? Was a second from Councilman Clare. All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing no opposition, motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we saved the final piece of business, which is a Fairway Drive sidewalk repair, and we have Richard Alvarado to come and speak to us about it. Richard, did you make somebody mad? They made this last on the list, so you had to wait all night? The floor is yours. Tell us about the sidewalk repair, please.
You're not
All
muted.
right.
Oh, there you go.
Am I
He's
off?
off, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. A little bit of background on the Fairway sidewalk repair here. The Jason Pointer, the resident there, that open field was used as an overflow for a parking lot for the Wigwam events throughout the past years. And with that, the sidewalk has been significantly damaged with vehicles going in and out of that open lot there. Now, a little bit on the background. Since the purchase from Jason Pointer, the city agreed to repair the damaged curb and gutter and sidewalk. So moving forward, along myself and the city engineer had done an inspection on it, and there isn't a significant amount of damage to the sidewalk. So we sought out a proposal with Ace Asphalt, again through using the Mojave Co-op purchasing agreement. The proposal was received back to do the repairs on the sidewalk, curb and gutter, as well as replacing the apron along Fairway and Old Litchfield Road. Now, the amount is not to exceed $21,024.99. And in your packet, you'll see a brief description on all the square footage on what would be replaced, as well as a map of the area. Again, I'm sorry, right here. The funds would be used, it would be taken out of the HERF funds for this particular project.
One question for you, that the sidewalk in that area, the pathway in that area, when you get to the would be the southwest corner of Pointer's lot, the pathway to the south of that is a wide pathway, And then
Yes.
it narrows down for the section along his house. So is this going to leave the pathway width the same as it is now, or is it going to take it out to the same width as what we have, going further to the west?
Oh, it'll be the same width as the existing sidewalk there. From that pathway heading east on Old Litchfield Road.
Yeah, do we have space in that area, Woody, to put in a pathway that is the same width as the pathway along the park that is to the west? You're on mute, Woody.
Sorry. I don't think there is enough room. Jason Pointer's wall is right on his property line, and there's going to be barely enough room for a little bit of landscaping between his wall and the sidewalk. And then, of course, he's already installed significant landscaping, mature palm trees and orange trees between the sidewalk and the back of the curb. So I don't think there's room to widen it out to, the full 8-foot pathway.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. We probably should have taken that into account when we did the condemnation to get that property so that we could have a pathway, because it's really odd now, and a lot of people who use that with their golf carts, and it becomes pretty unsafe when you get to his property if anybody is walking or biking on that pathway when you've got a golf cart trying to fill up the whole pathway.
Well, again, Mayor, I think, if you were willing to have the sidewalk basically abut up against his wall, there's probably room, but that, I'm not sure if that's the situation you want to have there or not.
I would say probably not, but it would have been nice if we had the ability to, put in the same normal width of not just sidewalk, but pathway. Any other comment, council? If not, is there a motion to approve a cooperative purchase contract with Ace Asphalt to repair the sidewalk and curb and gutter in the area along Fairway Drive as presented in the packet?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Councilman Romack, moved by Councilman Brainerd Watson. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Richard. Nice job. I think this is your first time before council. You did a good job. I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Yes, sir, it was. And thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, there being no other business to come before us. Oh, we have city manager has got business. I can
Mr.
see.
Mayor, thank you so much. Before we sign off here and adjourn, I'd like to take this opportunity to virtually introduce you to our newest staff member, who you may have on his screen there, Mr. Gerald Smith, who just started this past week. And he is our new code enforcement officer, and he's already out hitting the streets and doing a great job. So Gerald Smith is now our newest staff member. So if you happen to see him around, you can say hi. And that's all I had. Thank you. Thank you, Gerald.
All right. Well, we want to welcome Gerald. We're happy to see you here, and we definitely are ready to have a full-time code enforcement person again. And I don't know if this was passed on to you yet by your city manager or assistant city manager, but part of your job in code enforcement is to watch the condition of our common areas maintained by the city. And if the city doesn't do their job properly in keeping things mowed and trimmed and having grass in areas and have areas of just dirt where there should be grass, then your job includes literally writing up the city so that they fix that. Because you're the council's eyes in the community to make sure that what you're seeing is what our residents will be proud of and will want in their community. And so that includes our largest landowner, which is the city. Just a direction from the mayor. Any other comments to our new code enforcement officer?
Welcome aboard.
If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
No, not yet.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hold that motion. Councilman
Can I
Brainerd
just
Watson.
Every meeting, we've always done the little thing where council members tell what they've been up to or something new, or, and we didn't do that because obviously we're pretty much locked down. But I just wanted to share with you that there's a group that are calling themselves the Masketeers. It's a small group from St. Peter's Church, started by Deacon Gary, and what they do is they've been making masks, and you've probably seen that. They sit on the corner of right opposite the dental office and sell masks on a daily basis. But they also donate a lot of them. And one of the people who works on it is my next door neighbor, and I asked her husband to write something up for us so we'd know. But they've given out masks free to many local residents, to the New Life Center, to Native American Connections and Ministries, U.S. Vets, Family Promise, and many other groups. To date, they've distributed 1,364 masks. And they said, if there's anyone that is interested in sewing, please feel free to contact us or contact the church. You can contact me through the city email. I'm sure Mayor Schoaf, you've got a sewing machine sitting at home somewhere, right?
I actually have a sewing machine that someone in my household demanded that they absolutely demanded we had to have this sewing machine. And I don't believe there's ever been a thread put into that needle. So.
Well, call me on it. I might be able to help you out with that. Anyhow, I just wanted to really applaud the group for their efforts, because they really, giving back to the community and to people really seriously and doing a fabulous job.
Thank you for giving us that report. And that actually prompts me to say to the city clerk, who puts our agendas together generally, and I do not always go over them with any detail ahead of time. We need to go through this agenda and make sure that we put in the things that we still need to do, even though we're doing this in a virtual method. And one of that is an opportunity for council to report on things like what Councilman Brainerd Watson just reported on. So we need to take a look at the agenda again before we put it out. And if you would get it out to me, and we could think about what is missing from what we used to have, to see if it's something that should be on there in the future. Okay.
I will do that for September's meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from council? All right, now is there a motion to adjourn? Come on, somebody. Oh, Councilman Clare moves. Is there a second?
Okay.
Second by Councilman Romack. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Too bad you guys came back. Kim, you got here just in time to see us adjourn. Thank you for all your input into this meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
See you later again. Thanks for your time and effort for the city. We all appreciate it.